GIC, the mortgage insurance company, out reporting a bigger loss than expected here just seconds ago. 79 cents a share. The average estimate was a loss of 61 cents per share. MTG, the ticker there. Keep your eye on that one as well. Alexis, back to you in the studio.
All right. Thanks so much, Robert. Well, despite fierce resistance among some GOP congressional members, it now appears the Bush administration's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac rescue proposals will make it into law, but likely as part of a wider housing rescue bill.
I don't think there's any question that this will, in fact, become law and become law soon.
I feel very confident and optimistic that there's broad-based support for moving quickly to get the GSE reform done, and I'd be very optimistic that we would get it done sometime next week.
But our next guest does not think the mortgage titans should get a blank check, and more changes may be needed in how they do business. For where he thinks the government-sponsored enterprise reform legislation should go, we welcome New Jersey Republican Congressman and House Financial Services member Scott Garrett. Congressman Garrett, thanks so much for joining me this morning.
It's good to be with you this morning. Good morning.
You know, you just heard Treasury Secretary Paulson and Congressman Boehner talk about the fact that they think this thing is going to get done. You're concerned about it. Why is that?
Well, we all should be concerned about it, but the magnitude of the problem that is out there and the impact that it could have on American taxpayers, as you know, it's about a $5 trillion liability that could be added to the liability of the United States government if everything went south on us. You know, the total liability for the government right now is just a little above $9 trillion, so this is half of all the U.S. liability would be added to our balance sheet. So it's something that's serious. We'll have to look at very thoughtfully and before we rush to judgment on how we do it, and that's really what's happening. It's moving too quickly right now.
All right, so you are for a standalone bill, which you proposed last night. Explain why.
Well, for as long as I've been in Congress, for the last 5.5 years, I've said there is a problem with the GSEs, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. There is potential for systemic risk that something of this magnitude could happen down the road. Very few other people were listening. Most other people said, no, it's never going to happen. We can just continue to allow them to expand, grow without limit, and we would never have to prop them up. And Barney Frank even said that he would never be there to bail out the GSEs, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. But that's exactly what's happening right now. The American taxpayer is being asked to be put on the hook here. So what I'm suggesting is just a scaled-down approach to it. Let's do basically what the compromise was between the Senate and the House of just GSE reform. None of this extraneous matters, none of this patronage programs, none of this tax on the American tax on the GSEs that the Barney and others want to add on to it. Just a GSE reform that the Treasury Secretary would like to have, actually, and you would have that in place, and it would address the fundamental problems that they have with the GSEs.
Okay, and in essence, the reason you believe a standalone bill is preferable is because, in essence, it would limit taxpayer liability in your mind?
Well, sure, because none of these other proposals would have to go forward, I would think, because these would address one of the fundamental problems with the GSEs, and that's their structure and that's their capital requirements and what have you. So you'd put that in place. And also what it would do is get rid of this housing fund that Barney and others want to tag onto this program. You know, it's absurd, really, what the Democrats want to do. They want to say, on the one hand, we want to have the American taxpayers basically subsidize or help out the GSEs by funneling cash into it. And on the other hand, they want to add a tax to the GSEs to siphon up to upwards to $500 million a year to go out to their pet projects across the country. So how is that sensible to, you know, give with the one hand and tax them on the other hand and basically take away their ability to raise capital? All right. Let's take away all that.
Okay, let me, there's something I want you to listen to right now, Congressman. We spoke exclusively last night to Senator Jim DeMint, and he basically has come out again, lobbying, campaigning money. He's saying that for Fannie and Freddie, it's over. And he's basically alluding to the fact that this is a buyout and it may be more of a payout. Take a listen to what he said on America's Nightly Scoreboard last night.
Sure.
As they were throwing money all around, huge profits, $1 million salaries for their executives, that Congress would back them up if they got into trouble. Because Congress essentially doesn't have much choice because they hold a lot of the mortgages in the country today. So, I mean, this was a you pat my back, I pat yours.
You know, I spoke to Congressman Ron Paul yesterday on Your World at Fox News. He basically agreed the same thing. I mean, there's been $200 million spent in lobbying. If you look at it right now in the past decade, where do you stand on this?
Oh, they're absolutely correct. You know, any time that we proposed over the last 6 years to have any modicum of regulation or increased oversight of the GSEs, immediately the GSEs would put their huge task force of lobbyists and campaign contributions would swarm the Hill. You would have every office would be swamped with lobbyists saying, you can't do this, you can't do this, it will destroy the housing market, it will destroy building, so on and so forth. They have one of the most influential lobbying forces in town, and that's the result of that is that you never saw the reform for the last 6 years. And now who's going to pay the price? Well, certainly not the politicians who have gotten all this money. And I guess in politics, it's the old saying, follow the money. And all you have to do is follow the money in the past, see who got those contributions, see how they voted for reform as far as the GSEs. Right. You say, that's the way it always goes in Washington.
You know, look, Senator DeMint also says the bottom line is Fannie and Freddie should be broken up just to better compete with private companies, because at the end of the day, if you look at their leverage or you look at their capital position or their cash position, it's just not the same as public corporations, even though they're publicly traded. What's your opinion on that?
That's an excellent idea, because, you know, when Secretary Paulson was at the GOP conference, he said this statement. He said, well, I think now that those people who were friends of the GSEs in the past realize that their argument that there's no systemic risk was wrong, and that they'll be on our side as far as more reform, so on and so forth. He is absolutely wrong. The friends of GSEs continue to believe that there's no systemic risk. They would love to see the GSEs grow even larger, more powerful, without any limits whatsoever. Senator DeMint is absolutely right. We need to break them up, allow for more competition in the marketplace so that in the future we will not be in this situation again, and they would not be so interconnected and too big to fail that the taxpayer has to come back and bail them out.
You know, let me switch gears for just a moment.
Okay.
Look, for whether it's Obama or McCain right now, they've got probably the biggest decision of their political career right now in choosing a vice presidential candidate before they go to the conventions.
I'm here.
When choosing a VP right now, what's more important? Is it someone who's an expert on the economy or national security, particularly what's going on in the Middle East?
See, I thought your question was, am I open to be the VP for Senator McCain? And that wasn't your question here?
No, that wasn't, but are you open to it?
I'm waiting for the invitation. So if you've heard something, I'm just a senator. I'll give him my phone number.
No, I mean, basically what I'm saying is you know, they got to choose a candidate. A lot of people think that McCain's going to choose Romney because he's got the economic experience. Is that going to be the important decision maker for Obama and McCain?
Well, for Senator McCain, obviously, everyone would agree that he certainly has the expertise on the security matter, and I guess a great balance for him would be somebody for the economic side of the equation, and that would be a good balance for them. I mean, not to say that Senator McCain's not good on economic issues, but it probably from the public perspective, it'd be great. For Senator Obama, I guess he would actually have to look out for a vice president who has expertise in both areas, because Senator Obama does not have any expertise in homeland security or security matters, so he would need a VP in that area. But come to think of it, he really doesn't have any expertise in the economic area as well. So I guess he would need a vice president who's expert in both, who could help him out in both areas. All
right. I'm sure he would disagree with that. But
yeah,
Congressman Garrett, thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate the chance.
Well, from urban blight to urban oasis, Newark, New Jersey has reinvented itself as a safe haven for business in less than 2 years. And the city owes a lot of its success to one man, its mayor. We're going to ask him how we turn the city around after the break.